Oui.
Vous avez été les rencontrer justement parce qu'il y a des choses qui résonnent bien entre...
Oui, je ne participe pas de façon très active, mais si en tout cas, je suis en contact avec eux. Pour le bouquin River Culture, on a M. Amiroli qui gère le site de la Loire, pour l'UNESCO. Et lui, il est très engagé dans ces échanges de temps en temps.
Ça me fait penser, ça serait...
Oui, oui.
Je vous envoyer un message.
Oui. Ah, si. Ah, ok.
De Rennes.
Ah, ok.
Avec les yeux.
Ah, très bien. Très bien, très bien. Ok. Ah, ok. Donc, on reprend notre session de cet après-midi avec un petit retard. Ah, English. Okay, so we continue our session. Sorry. We continue our afternoon session with three short talks of 20 minutes each in the context of the session 3 about the ecosystem services and the products. And all these three talks will be more or less connected to land use, and we will start with Emilien Veron about spatial factors influencing the territorial gaps of organic farming in France. Please.
Thanks. Thanks to the organization team for this conference. I'm Emilien Veron, PhD candidate at the Beta Lab in Strasbourg. And I present my first paper co-author with my thesis supervisor, Nguyen Van and Anne Stenger, Spatial Factor Influencing the Territorial Gap of Organic Farming in French. The objective of this paper is to understand the development gap of organic farming in France.
Oh, pardon. Im Feld. Ça ne marche pas. Ah, maintenant ça marche. Non?
You push the button and I will
Yeah, and I will change the...
Okay. The organic farming is the best alternative to conventional farming because it filled 9 billion people in 2050 and reduced the environmental impact of the agriculture. In France, the organic farming developing well with 11.5 annual growth between 2050 and 2020, but still low. It represents less than 9.5% of the agricultural land in France and very heterogeneous over the territory. Next. Thank you. You can see on the right, on the left, 54% of the municipality do not have any organic farming. And on the right, just over 1% of the French municipality have fully organic farming. Yes, thank you. The literature that began in the 90s do not allow to understand this gap because it focus only on the individual characteristic of the farm and the farmer. For example, you know that the young farmer have the higher probability to conversion, and if he's more diploma, there are more probability to convert, but these individual characteristics do not allow to understand this heterogeneity gap in the territory. In this paper, you focus on the spatial characteristic at the communal level on the distribution of organic farming ratio. Okay, next. And next. Thank you. To answer this question, we will focus on 4 categories of variables which create difference between municipalities. First, we will test the presence of neighborhood effects. The neighborhood effect is identified by Schmitter in Germany and Bjørnog in Norway. For them, organic farmers form a cluster. This means that some geographic area will be dense with organic farmer and other geographic area will not. Okay. According to Bjørnog, this cluster is formed because organic farming requires knowledge that can only be provided by organic farmer. Okay. To practice in organic is important to have the knowledge to this practice, and this knowledge is only can be provided by another organic farmer. Thus, when a conventional farmer is in area dense with organic farmer, he has a higher probability of accessing this knowledge and therefore to convert. Secondly, we analyze the heterogeneity of the municipality due to European policy, union policy. We studied 2 types of different policy. First, the impact of protected area of origin, that is the PDO or AOP. This allows certain products to be labeled so that the consumer know they are being produced in the specific geographic area. At the same time, the farmer has to comply with a set of specifications for that product. There may be similarity between this specification, the PDO specification, and the European specification of organic farming, particularly regarding with the animal welfare. Okay. Thus, when a conventional farmer will already comply with PDO specification, will have a lower cost of conversion to organic than another conventional farmer. Then, according to Jouniaux, more a farmer receives subsidy, more the revenue, the income of the farmer will depend on this production, and thus he will be more likely to take a risk, the risk such as the conversion to the organic farming. Here we will test the impact of the subsidized delivery by the second pillar of the CAP, that is the area facing natural or specific constraint payment. This is a subsidy that attributes to a farmer working in the list of defined communes, which due to their geographic isolation or natural constraint make farming more difficult. Okay. We also observe the influence of the soil quality on the distribution of organic farmer. Indeed, for Schmitter and Walney, the density of organic farmer is higher when the least productive soil. And for Lampache, organic farmer in Vietnam locate where the climatic and soil conditions are the best. Okay, So the sign of this variable begin debate in the literature. We make a new contribution. And finally, we test the influence of the forest and semi-natural element, for example, age of row of tree which separate the fields, on the distribution of organic farmer. Indeed, this element make it possible to substitute chemical pesticide and fertilizer. Actually, these difficult substitutions are the main obstacle to the conversion, okay, because it's not possible to substitute this. But the forest, by the biodiversity is contained, allowed the production of ecosystem services, included eradication of crop pests, replacing pesticide, and also an improvement of soil fertility and soil quality. Okay, next. Just a table to summarize the database. The organic ratio is the number of organic farmers in the municipality over the total number of farmers. The number of processors and suppliers have a organic activity declared to the Agence Bio. And we have separate the impact of different PDO by type of product. Wine PDO, fruit PDO, livestock PDO, etc. Next. Where is the laser? Okay, it's... thank you. This is the Moran plot. You can see on the X. Oh, okay. On the x-axis is the municipality organic ratio, okay? So here, for example, the municipality have 80% of the organic farmer. And here is the average of organic ratio of the neighborhood municipality, okay? If the blue curve and red curve overlap, it's absence of spatial autocorrelation. Okay, here I have the spatial autocorrelation. That is means, the neighborhood municipality characteristic influence the organic ratio. Okay, this is called the cluster. This graph indicates the cluster of organic ratio. Okay. So to integrate this, next, thank you. So to integrate this spatial autocorrelation, that is the organic ratio of the municipality is influenced by the environment. That is the neighborhood commune. Okay, it's necessary to integrate two parameters on this equation. Just no. Yes, thank you. Next, this parameter, okay, captures the influence of organic ratio of the neighborhood, and this parameter included the influence of explanatory variable of the neighboring municipality on the organic ratio of the commune. Okay, the explanatory variable is the organic processor, supplier, PDO, anti-payments, etc., etc. Okay, just next. And each parameter it's associated with a neighboring matrix, which should represent the relation between the different observations. Okay, that is the matrix which represents the relation between all farmers in the France. Okay, and to create this matrix, we create a radius around the commune in consideration at 10, 50, 20, and 50 kilometers. And around this circle, all municipalities are declared like a neighborhood of the commune. Okay, That is, the farmer have a potential relation with the farmer in the neighboring municipality. Okay, next. Okay, is the results. Have three types of results. Okay, the direct effect is how the change in the municipality affect the ratio of organic the ratio of organic farmer. Okay, the classic in econometrics. The indirect effect is how the change in the municipality affects the neighborhood commune. And the total effect refers to the sum of these two effects. First, number of processors. I have a direct effect and indirect effect up to 20 kilometers. For take an example, if a Biocoop establish a new branch in Strasbourg, I have an effect on the organic ratio of the whole commune in the Eurométropole of Strasbourg. Okay, the effect is not only on Strasbourg, but I have effect around 20 kilometers. It's the same effect for wine PDO. Okay, here is the subsidized delivery by the CAP, area facing natural constraints, and here you can see they have only direct effect because it's normal, because only the farmer in the municipality receives this fund. Okay, it's normal. There are no indirect effect. Constrained area is positive. That is to say, more the agriculture surface in the municipality are constrained. That is the least productive soil. More the organic ratio is important. Okay. And the last result, more the share of forest and natural element is important in the municipality, more the organic ratio in the municipality and in the neighborhood commune are important. Okay, so the forest and natural elements have really replace effect on the want to easier the practice of organic farming. Okay. Good. Next. So it's to recall the effect. The organic ratio is found to be higher in the area with low soil productivity. For us, the farmer knows that they have a low production and they want to valorize it in more important way by the higher price of the organic. Okay, and in that addition, the practice of organic farming can help to improve the fertility of soil and increase this production. And for the proximity of forest and natural element, it's in the other in the paper we try to explain also the number of conventional farmers in the municipality, and we obtain a negative relation with the forest. So the conventional farmers are competing for land with the forest, for example, deforestation in Amazonia, and organic farmers need the service provided by the forest. Okay, the opposite. Next, for conclude, I propose to include an environmental component in the PDO specification. It could be represent a gateway to the organic farming. And it's important to preserve and increase the number of semi-natural elements because allowing a spatial spillover effect. And just one limit, only organic farmers are taken into account, but some farmers have similar practice but are considered like a conventional because it's not a label of organic ratio. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have some time for questions. Yeah, Elisabeth?
Thank you. I have a question about the methodology.
Okay.
How did you get those data?
What sample do you get? Because maybe I missed something from the beginning, but I didn't understand how you came to those results. And did you interview producers, or do you have qualitative data as well, or not? Thank you.
Thank you. The French organic agency have a database, and for each municipality, I have the number of organic farmer, because his label is list, and the number of farmer is in the agricultural census and complete by the MSI database. And for each commune, you have the organic ratio, so the number of organic farmer over the total of agricultural, and that is for dependent variable. And also you have the question about other variable. Okay. Processor and distributor is by agency 2. For the forest, I have for the forest is the current land cover, but I have also model for the robustness check, and I take into account the distance by the forest, the more proche, and proximity, and for each and also for the zone protégée, the presence of zone protégée, and all this model check the positive influence of this three type of natural element. And no, I haven't quality interview of agricultural farmer, because I have macro analyze on the all of France, and the COVID is complicated to have an interview, because it's I finished my first year of PhD, and I prefer to interview the person is in the Chambre d'Agriculture or other. And for the next paper, I have the RICA information, and I have all of revenue of agricultural, and for me it's good data. And if I ask to a farmer what is your revenue, and that's all, it should lie to okay.
Yes, but what I meant by that is that I think that maybe, but that's for another paper, that adding qualitative data would really enrich your research, because sometimes you would discover that farmers move to organic production because maybe they suffered from pesticides. They suffered from health damages on their personal life. So this is the sort of thing you would only discover by interviewing those people. So there is a good result you mentioned about the knowledge transfer from one organic farmer to others. But I think there are more qualitative factors you could discover through those interviews.
My paper is not an exhaustive study of the determinant. It's an approach to relevant 3 or 4 determinants, and but I have a lot of paper in the of this. But it's a good idea.
Okay. Are there further questions? Yes?
Yes, thank you for this interesting presentation.
Can you please tell your name?
Patrick Rondet from Beta, economist. Just one question about the results. You observe differentiated effect of the PDO according to the various type of culture. For example, you don't have the same effect or the same impact in the wine sector as in the vegetable sector. Do you have an idea why you have this various effect?
Yeah, yes. The wine farmer sell the production without intermediary and is in concurrence with other vineyards. For example, in the Alsace, you go in the Rigvier, and I have 40 or 20 vineyard difference, and all this farmer is in competing with more label. Okay, it's a label of vigneron indépendant, etc., etc. But for example, in the dairy farmer, the label are substitute because, for example, Comté AOP, the sales of 4,000 liters of milk is around 800 euro. So the organic milk, it's I think 454 euro by for 1,000 liters. It's not important to addition the label. It should to because the dairy sell to Lactalis, and that's all. Is not in competing with the other dairy. For its the explication for me. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I would suggest we continue our presentations now with the next speaker, Tuyen Tiet, who will talk about drivers of organic farming, lab in the field evidence of social comparison and information nudge in networks in Vietnam.
Merci. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for all of you for being here, participate into this symposium, and thank you for the organizer for these great opportunities for us to discuss our works here. And so the topics I'm going to talk about today is about the drivers of organic farming. So it's the lab in the field experiments. So we conduct in Vietnam. So this is John's works with several colleagues here in Beta University of Strasbourg, and the others in the Economic X University of Paris Nanterre, and the others in Vietnam National Universities. And so the objective of these studies is to investigate the determinants of organic farming adoption. So what is the motivation of organic farming adoption? So if we look at the effects of organic food, so we cannot ignore it. And today's the consumer more and more awareness of these benefits, not only on the health, but also on the environment. So we observe the increasing in demand from the consumer side. And for the supply side, so the organic farming should be promoted. But we observe the animal progress in terms of production. For example, there is a very low area dedicated to organic agriculture all over the world. For example, there are only 1.1% of the organic lands in the total organic agricultural lands in 179 countries, according to the World Bank report in 2017. And these organic lands is very concentrated as well. For example, 86% of the world's organic surface is located in 20 countries. For example, Australia with 51% of the surface and 70% of these organic lands in Argentina. So it's according to the Observatory National Agriculture Biological Report. And how about in Asia? So in Vietnam, so there is a progress of organic farming. So the government, they encourage organic adoptions, but the cultivation and planting of organic products increasing in 8 years, but from 12,000 hectares in 2017 to 76,000 hectares, but it accounts only 1% of the total land, according to the report in 2020. And then we observe that most farmers, they do not wish to engage in organic production in the context, at least in the context of Vietnam, because of several reasons. First of that is the lack of information about organic farming. So they didn't know how to do organic food, because most of the farmers, they are small households or small-scale farmers, or they are household farmers, and they face a high cost of adoption and even to get organic certification. And they also lack of market capability, so they're less capable to sell the organic food, so they face a low prospects of high income. And finally, so they a low awareness. So some of the farmers, they are really lack of information of the harmful effects of chemicals, and so on, and several other reasons. And so, because of these reasons, so we've observed the increasing importation of pesticides and more material in Vietnam. Even the government, they encourage the organic adoption, and therefore the food safety is to be really issues in the Vietnam, according to the Food Agriculture Organization report. And so, according to the existing literature, so what should we do to motivate people to adopt organic farming? So first of all, the monetary incentive is the subsidized policies, because organic adoption is risky. So if you give a guarantee for a certain income to farmers, so you can raise them to adopt organic production. And the others, non-monetary incentives will be informational incentive. So you give information to farmers about how to produce organic agricultural practice, or you have to give information to raise their awareness to adopt organic farming. Could be a good non-monetary incentive. And among these incentives, the social factors is also very important, because farmers, they are not alone in the village, so they locate next to each other. So the partial dependencies is the issue. So one could influence by the next door farmer doing. And because of the partial dependencies, so network factor is also very important, because farmers, they not only observe what the neighbor doing, we observe what the other doing in their village as well. So that is a connection not only with neighborhood farmer, but also the other farmers in the village. So that is the objective of these studies, is to observe, to investigate, so what the social connection or network influence of P effects, and in addition with the social incentive, like the social comparison, the intra-group social comparison. So what will be how the group average investment to organic farming could influence their decision to adopt organic production, and also the information about the social optimal level of investment. So we're testing these incentives on the farmer decision based on the investment. So they will give the percentage of the land, so they dedicated from 0 to 100% to organic food. So the study is the lab in the field, which conducted in Vietnam with 220 farmers in the 8 village in the northern Vietnam. So the main result is we observe that the interconnection between farmers is important. So that means that the number of connections, so the more the people that connect with the other farmers, so they raise their investment to organic production, and the effects of social comparison depend on the network structure. So it's better in the decentralized networks like a circle, and the combination of social comparison and nudge have the positive and significant effects in all networks. So before going to the results, so we first talk a little bit, but not too details in the theoretical models. So in fact, the farmers, we have a simple context that the farmer face a decision. So they have to invest the land, 100% of the land, to organic farming or conventional farming. So if we let Xi is the farmers, I's investment into organic farming. So 1 minus Xi is the amount that they will invest in the conventional farming. So F is the revenue function. So, and we assume that organic farming is more productive than have higher revenues than conventional farming, but the farmer have to pay a gamma Xi cost if they want to convert into organic products. And then they have to take into account the network P effects. So the Dij is the dmi equal to 1 if I connect with J. So that is the P effects. And then the social comparison, the last term. So Xi is minus the mean of the group, so it's like a conformity. So if I invest more than on average in my village or in my network, so I feel better. If I invest less than this average, so I feel worse. And then the Nash equivalent. So let's not go into very detail of this solution, but the Xi, you can see, it depends on several parameters. And importantly, it depends on the phi. And phi is the network structure. So because phi contains D. So D is the connection between farmer. So because of Xi depend on D. So depends on the connection, like the location in the network. So X farmer, they have different Nash equilibrium. So that is the important thing. And because of this, then the first theoretical prediction is the role of networks will matter. So the interconnection between agents in the networks could have positive impacts on farmer investment in organic farming. So these impacts will vary according to the different type of networks. So in our studies, so we assume the network is exogenous. So we have 4 different situations. So the first one is the empty network, which means that no farmer have connection with other farmers. And the first one is the circle, so one connects with the next 2 neighborhood farmers. So it is a simple context where a farmer located in the village one linked to the 2 others. And then we have a star network. It means that all the farmer links to the only one farmer. So it's the context that all the farmers, they link to kind of organized reason that there is the leaders in the networks. And the last one is complete networks, meaning that every farmer links to each other. Then the prediction tools, we can observe that the role of social comparison, we have a positive impact on farmer investment because one care about the average of the others. But this social comparison will not vary across different type of network because regardless of the networks, the farmer will receive the average information, whatever the type, the circle, the star, or the complete network. So they receive the average investment of the group. So it's not varies. Then the last prediction will be the social comparison and nudge. So the combination of social comparison and nudge would have the positive impacts on farmer investment, and these impacts will vary because the social comparison, the net information treatment is the information about social optimum investment, and this social optimum investment is different according to different networks, so it varies for sure. And then let's talk about the experimental design. So the experimental design will consist of 4 parts. So we conduct on the iPads on the fields in the village with the farmer, and the first part of this experiment is the risk. Sensitivity to risk. The second part is the farmers will place the simple organic investment game with the no case, meaning that they have non-empty network without any treatment. So very simple, just to test the understanding of the experiment. And then the next step will be the treatment. So according to different treatments, so they will place the situation in the empty network with the treatment, or they place in the situation with different networks without treatment or with treatment. And finally, we have a surveys to collect the socio-economic characteristics. So the first part is the basics or the standard risk sensitivity lottery choice game, which means that X farmers, they receive the X amount of money and they decide to invest 1 to 50 of this money to a lottery. And if they win the lottery, so they triple this amount. If not, so they will receive the amount left that they're not invest in. And then the farmer, they are the one who decide this outcome at the end of the experiment by tossing the coin themselves. So it's like decided by the nature. And then the second part is the investment in the no case, which means that farmer will participate into the game with the empty network, means that there's no link between farmer and no treatment. So they play a simple organic game. So they can decide from 0 to 100% the investment, and they can observe what the expected value, and they put the confirmations. Or because this part is just to test the understanding of the experiment, so they will play this game only 5 times. And then the part 3 will be the treatment part. So depend on the different treatments. So we have the table of 11 scenarios. So we have 4 different cases, so empty networks, and the 3 different networks. And in each case, so we have no treatment, social comparison, and social comparison, no treatment. So there's 11 scenarios. So X section will be randomly in these 11 scenarios. And so X farmer in X treatment will place the game 10 times. And then this is the example that they have in the star ST, SC. I mean that they are in the situation of the star networks, and there is a treatment social comparison. And then X farmer to have to make a decision from 0 to 100% of the land they want to invest in organic farming. And they can put the amount they estimate for the decision of the other player. So in the game, so they can observe that. So for example, they know that they are the player 1 or they are player 2. If they are the player 1, thank you. They are the player 1, so they are the leaders. If they are the player 2, so they are the corner player. So they can make a decision according to this information. And at the end, after they make a decision, so if they are in the network, so they will observe after the game what the decision of their direct neighbor doing. If they are in the situation of social comparison, so they will receive the information about the average investment of the group. If they are in the situation of social comparison in nurse, so before they do it, to make a decision, they will receive the information about the social optimal investment. So what they should do the best, so they do, and what the other do, so they have the optimal path before and after graph. So the data is in these areas. So I think I'm stuck of time, so I will go a little bit faster. Let's go a little bit here. So the result we observe here is, so you can see the network really plays a role, because varies from the circle to the star to the complete network. You see the investment, they are different. So the network really have the effects. And then the social comparison play a role differently in different networks. And then also the nudge information. So this is the visualization. And how about the statistical test? So the statistical test showing us that the theoretical prediction 1 is valid, because farmers they are influenced by a number of their direct neighbors. And then the network, so the second, but the second prediction is only partially validated, because the social comparison treatment have effective, but only in the circle network. And this is the theoretical prediction tree. So you can observe that according to different treatment in different networks. So the social comparison and not treatment have an effect positively and significantly. So that is the average investment. What about the individual decision? So we take into account the heterogeneity of farmers across different networks. So we observe, you can see there's a lot of information here, but the important thing is you observe that in the third column, the circle is better than the star, and the complete network is better than the circle. So it's to confirm our result in the statistical test here. So it just confirm this one. And then the result according to different networks. So the fractional regression showing us, interestingly, that in the empty network, so we have nothing. But in the circle, the social comparison matters significantly positively, and the social comparison nudge is in the star network and nothing in the complete network. And then just because lack of time, so I'm go directly to the conclusion. So in fact, according to the results, so we can observe that network-based approach is a cost-effectively method. So you can encourage people doing organic farming by, okay, thank you. So policy, so because the network is effective, so it's important that the policymaker and individuals should try to establish the channel for individual to promote the individual links. And then the environmental policy should not only take into account the number of links, but we should take into account the network connection, meaning that the frequency of interaction between people. For example, the circle network and the complete network. The circle network, we have 5 agents, but 1 link to the 2 others. But in the complete networks, we have also 5 agents, but 1 link to the 4 others. So the frequency of interaction is important. And the network is not only the number of links, but also the structure, because in different structure of networks, so the effects of individual decision is different. So for example, in the centralized network with fewer connections, so the social comparison matters. But in the centralized network, so it's better in diffusing nudge information. So in order to promote the decentralized network, so we should think about the key players, so the environmental leaders, for example, village leader, first mover, and so on. And finally, the combination of different nudge treatment is also effective in encourage the organic agricultural adoption. So it means that we should promote information not only about the important organic farming, but also the information about the socially optimal investment, what the farmer they should do. So the effects of information nurse is very different, depends on the network structure. So it means that nurse is related to information are very context specific. So we should carefully test it, because the same nurse may not have the same effects in different subgroups of society. So thank you for your attention. So this is the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much for the presentation, and the talk is now open for discussion. I would like to start with a question. The term nudge is very often used in decision taking. So when so to say, a tipping point when people change their behavior into a new direction. What is the information nudge in this context? How would you define it?
So the information nudge is the socially optimum. Because, for example, based on the model, so we calculate the social optimum investment according to the given networks, individual links too. So we give this information to the farmer before they're making the investment. For example, if they're in the star network, so we give them the information, so the leader, so the center of the farmer should invest this amount, and the corners should invest this amount. So, and then they make a decision maybe based on that or not, it's not compulsory. So we give this information to them. And we observe whether these informations could rise the decision, because we know the source optimal investment. And so we give this information to farmers. And we observe that if they change the behavior, and we see that if they change, because they know the information, they know what to do. So we give the information what the optimal they should do. Yes.
More questions? Yes.
Yes, I was wondering.
Tell
you
your name. Tell you.
Sorry.
Your name
I'm
and
Jerome Hamby from Beta. You said that public policy should focus on networks because network and structure of networks has an effect on organic agriculture adoption. But what kind of policies do governments have? What kind of policy could they implement to favor, for instance, complete networks? How can they influence the type of networks and their structure?
And thank you for your question. So it's a very interesting question. So the idea is, in order to benefit the network, for example, the complete network, so the government policy should encourage people to participate into a kind of farming cooperative, for example, like complete networks. So if the star networks matter, so the government policy should focus on the environmental leader. For example, the farming intention agency. So we give intention agency to the village. So it depends on the different situation where the different type of networks matters. So the government policy, the optimal, the effective policy should follow, giving the farming cooperative, encourage the farming cooperative, or giving farming intention agency to the village to change farming. Yes, if I answer your questions. Yes.
Thank you. Further questions? No. I still have a question about this payoff, in which in one of the first slides you showed conventional plus organic plus network plus. I actually did not understand.
So
how
the theoretical model?
It's one of the first
This one?
conventional. Yeah, the payoff. I think the payoff is something monetary, and then you have costs for conventional plus organic.
Yes.
Minus cost plus network plus comparison, and I really didn't understand it.
So, okay, here is the farmer pay off here, because the story is the farmer, they are in the situation of decide, because they have amount of land, for example X, so they decide to invest the percentage of this land to organics. Mm-hmm. For example, 50%, and then for example 50% the others will be conventional. Mm-hmm. And then the first term is the revenue for the conventional farming. So because we let XI is the investment to organic. So 1 minus X I, because 100%, so will be a conventional. Mm-hmm. So the first term is the revenue for conventional farming, and then the second one is the revenue for the organic. Mm-hmm. And then because organic, we assume that it's benefit more than conventional, by on the different we capture by the beta. Then the farmer have to pay if they want to convert the land, so they have to pay a cost. So gamma minus xi is the cost that they pay. And then we have also the social factor. So ex-farmer they care about what their neighbor do. So that is the 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth term. So the network benefit. So Gij is the dummy. So 1 connected to I. So it's equal to 1 if I link to J.
But does he have to pay for the network and for the comparison?
No, it's the benefit. So for example, the psychological benefit or informational benefit.
So the payoff is not a monetary term.
So the payoff is the monetary term, in fact. So the network, it captures the monetary benefits as well. If I link to my organic neighbor, so I benefit something. For example,
monetary.
Monetary term.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, but does the neighbor give me some money, or
no? It's not
do I earn more money if I do it? I avoid mistakes by getting help from my neighbor?
For example, if I'm doing organic myself, or I'm doing organic with my direct neighbor, so it's more beneficial, right? So it's the P effects, the P benefit in terms of, could be in terms of monetary, and it's in terms of monetary. So not only benefits from the information sharing, but I also benefit from the marketability. For example, in the cooperative side, benefit more than I'm doing organic myself.
Okay.
So it's a network benefit.
Mhm.
So kind of network benefit.
Mhm.
And then the social comparison. So it's a psychological kind of thing. So I feel better if I do better than the average of the others. Or I do be worse if I do less than the average. So that's the capture by the last one, the social comparison.
Mhm.
So
More questions? I would like to repeat Elisabeth's questions to the previous speaker, to you. Did you interview the farmers to get a kind of reality check of what you found out?
So in fact, so this is the few experiment. So in
Yeah.
fact, we surveyed farmer individually.
Mhm.
So ex-farmer. So with several, not only the experiment, but also the surveys after the experiment to capture what the income, social characteristics, and then the information like environmental awareness. What is environmental awareness? The norm. Like what you feel if the most of people in the village do organics and you feel good, or if you do organics and the other not doing, what you feel like that. Kind of a norm.
And what were the most important drivers for nudging, for changing into
So then
organic?
so you mean here in the
In
study?
your case, yeah.
So in this case, so what we observe is the important driver is the networks.
Excuse me?
It's the networks of people, so the link,
Yeah,
the frequency. And then the second thing is the nurse information, in addition to the networks. So the nurse information is important. We should give farmers not only the information about the average. So we give them the average investment, it may not work. But it's better not to give them the information exactly what the optimal they should do. So they follow. It's better than you give the average. So this is the important result of this study. In addition to the network. So the social comparison, social treatments play a role as well. Yes.
Thank you very much.
It's okay.
I don't see any further questions. Shouldn't be dialogue. So I would say we continue with Laurence Jouniaux, sorry, to talk about sustainability and research, how to structure discussions and actions. We're moving away from the field of agriculture and more to the sustainability behind science.
C'est des slides, ça? Okay, thanks. Okay, so my talk is a little different from the others. I will talk about sustainability and research, how to structure discussions and actions. So there are several groups in Strasbourg talking about how we could reduce our ecological impact induced by our research activities. So there is a group, GRI, in ITES laboratory, another group, GRIT, from the Astronomical Observatory, and the CREED group in IPHC. So we talk together to show you some little actions. So first, I will show some structuration, which is Labo 1.5. This is an international cross-disciplinary collective of academic researchers who share the same goals to better understand and reduce the environmental impact of the research, especially on the Earth's climate. So they are organized in different groups and in a think tank. So you can, if you want, participate to this discussion. For example, there is a reflection group talking about what is research. Is it only the liberty of a researcher to do what he wants, or if we should collectively decide what is research and what we could continue to do in research and what maybe we should stop because of the impact of on the climate. So this is this kind of discussion which are in Labo 1.5, but they also develop some tools. Oops, sorry. No. Okay. Some tools. So here they develop tools to perform the carbon footprint for the lab. They develop a commute simulator and also a travel simulator for your business trip. There is another organization to structure this discussion, which is which is a national group, Responsible Innovation and Research. This is a collective organization by universities, by research agencies, and what we call grandes écoles, such as engineer schools. So they want to develop educational pathways around the objectives of the sustainable development. They also want to contribute to the actions for the eco-friendly education and research public services, and they want to create a learning community in research and innovation for exercising responsibility in terms of the societal transition. So you can see here the CO2 emissions as a function of time. And I guess you know the orange scenario, which is the scenario business as usual. It means that we do nothing or almost nothing, so that we have an increase in temperature in the time, maybe up to 5 degrees or more. And we have here the green scenario, where we can take action to decrease our CO2 impact. And maybe we can reduce the increase of temperature up to 2 degrees. And you can see on the right here the CO2 emission as a function of time, and the small reduction here is due to the coronavirus because of the global decrease of the activities. I show you here the average carbon footprint for the France. This is about 11 tons per person and per year. And you can see that the effect of carbon footprint of the food is as much as the carbon input footprint for the travels. We have also some impact of the accommodation, and you have here the public services. It means that even if you don't eat, you don't travel, you are homeless, and you don't buy anything, then you still have this 1.1 ton of CO2, at least in France, per year. So this is very important because the research is included here. So we should decrease our carbon footprint. And the objective is to go from 11 to 2 tons of CO2 according to the Paris Agreement. So how to do that? You can see here that, so you have these 11 tons here, and we should go there. So one part of the decrease here could be done by the individual changes. This is about 1/4 of the decrease that we need. And then there is some collective actions, which are 3/4 of the decrease that we need to do to go to the 2 tons. So what is important to understand is that as a lab, all our actions will be included included in this decrease. If you do nothing, then this decrease will not happen. And it's important for everybody. So some laboratories perform their carbon footprint assessment as a lab. So you have an example here for the laboratory L'Océan. They did their carbon footprint, and you see here that the main impact is from travel and from the observation on sea, because they have to do some measurements in sea. And they have also some carbon footprint coming from the experimental setup. So what they do is that they discussed about their impact. They proposed some action, then they voted for what they proposed, and finally there was also the council of the laboratory which voted the action. And for example, they decided that if they can travel by 5 hours in train, they do not fly. So for example, they cannot fly from Paris to Toulouse. This is forbidden by the director of the laboratory because they voted that in the laboratory council. So this is one example. Here, this is the carbon balance of the astronomical observatory in Strasbourg. So we see that the heating has a big impact for the carbon footprint, also the business travel and the commuting travels. So here all the computer calculation is not included. You have here the carbon balance of IPGS in Strasbourg. You can see that the main impact is the business travel, the heating, the food, and the commuting travel. So once the lab has performed this carbon balance, it's important that everybody in the lab discuss together to see how to decrease this carbon footprint. So I showed some other example of action in other laboratory. For example, in the International Space University in Strasbourg, they decided to write a sustainable policy. This is to provide principles for reducing their carbon footprint and to raise the awareness of the climate change. So they have 6 axes of action, one on the building energy efficiency, another on decarbonized energy, on commuting and business transportation, on waste reduction, on the choice of suppliers, even if it doesn't depend directly on us, but on the university or on CNRS. And they have an axis on the teaching and study projects related to the Earth system and climate changes. I show you here the food action, because in Strasbourg there was a university call for more vegan meals at the university restaurants, and it was signed by more than 160 professors and researchers. And why? Because this is important, an important possibility to reduce the carbon footprint. Here you can see that if the reduction of the carbon is 2.8 ton, the majority of this reduction can be performed by the food by eating vegetarian meals. So you can contact Cedric Sueur if you want more detail on this action. And here I put the carbon impact of the food, and so in red this is the animal products, and in green this is vegetables, fruit, and leguminous vegetables. And we have a poster outside which detail that. Okay, to reduce our carbon impact, we can also organize green conferences. We can have help from CNRS by Eco-Info, and we also can use a carbon-free conference to organize a conference at distance. It can be useful to decrease the carbon footprint because of people must fly to go to the conference. Then I show you the bike action by the geography faculty. So in this faculty, they participate to the challenge Outward by Bike, organized by university, and they also created a secure bicycle space. So it was their initiative, and the lab has paid for that. And they mentioned that it was a little work and not too much expensive, so maybe other lab could do the same. They have now 3 electrical bicycles, which avoid more than 1 private cars and return tickets. So maybe if we can have more secure park for the bicycle, people will be able, would be able to come by bicycle more often. And I would like to mention also that now we have a financial support if we come to work by bicycle. In the law, this is at most 500 euro per year. And at CNRS and Unistra, we have about 200 euro per year. And then I would like to show a really nice project in Cronenbourg. This is from the community garden to the green campus project in Cronenbourg. So they started in 2017. They have this idea and they implemented it. It was initiated in IPHE. And then at some time, there was the enrollment of the recreation center, which is in Cronenbourg. So they gather people, they gather children, the staff, the researcher, and the students. And finally, it could be open to the whole campus through the support of the CNRS. And now it comes that it's the Green Campus project in Cronenbourg. So there was the expansion of the vegetable garden. They plant trees, they settle hives, and they have a flower meadow with differential management. So it is still a really nice experiment, and this is an open air experiment for the environmental education and short route for the supply also, because we can have vegetables. And this is, of course, motivational, participative, virtuous, and sustainable. And I show you here the eco-moving at Strasbourg Observatory. So you can see here the ships in the garden. So the purpose here was the brushwood cleaning and raising awareness on biodiversity and carbon footprint. Mm-hmm. And it was to replace mechanical noises by these happy ships. So you can have some more information talking to Emmanuel Perret and Mireille Louis. So I have some conclusion about these small actions, but still I guess important. So we see that actions at the scale of the laboratory can raise the awareness of climate changes, and it can gather people. So this is important. To debate how we can decrease our carbon footprint due to the research activities, we have first to perform our carbon balance. So we can use the tool from Labo 1.5. And we saw that the main impacts are from the business travel, the lunch meals, the heating, and the commuting travel. At least for this laboratory which works on earth sciences, we have to move a lot to do some observations. This is because this is why we have all this impact from the business travels. So I think it's necessary to have some actions towards the restaurants from university and CNRS to have more vegan meals. There is a urgency to insulate the buildings, I think, everywhere in France on the campus. And it would be essential to develop a car sharing platform for commuting for people coming on the same campus. It will really decrease the impact, as we saw that in the balance, the commuting travels are not negligible. Even if in Strasbourg a lot of people are coming by bicycle, really a lot, but the remaining people coming by car have a big impact. So I thank you for your attention, and we have some posters outside. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Very inspiring talk, and I think it's also very important that researchers are also have a great effect as a multiplier. So it's not only the individual effect by the person, but also the transfer to show that it is possible to behave differently. Questions and comments? Yeah.
Did you observe that everybody in the lab played the game? In fact, they were all incentivized to do.
For example, no, of course. For example, when we ask to the people how they came from home to work, we had only about 40% of answers. So we just multiply to have the right impact in terms of person, but we were based only on 40% of response of answers. And in my lab, we didn't have yet a lot of debates about this carbon footprint because we just did it. I don't know in the astronomical observatory if you had some debate inside the lab or.
Hello, I'm Mireille Louis from Strasbourg Astronomical Observatory, and we have some kind of awareness with many informal meetings into the lab. It's about 80%, so it's not too big also, but it's difficult to get really private information. So there is a trend to develop more and more these studies on carbon footprint, but we didn't set up something official into the lab yet.
Okay, I think the model is the laboratory of l'Océan, but maybe they took 2 years to do the carbon footprint, to discuss, to propose a solution, and to vote. So
I think it's a matter of time, but another suggestion would be to create some social comparison, giving the results of the other labs in the campus, and perhaps it will stimulate to do, in fact.
Maybe.
Yes?
Yes, Jérôme Ambi from Beta. First, I wanted to thank you because even as a Strasbourg PhD candidate, I didn't know everything that was happening on the campus. I'm part at Beta of the Sustainable Development Group, and we're starting the 1.5 carbon footprint calculation, which leads to my question. according to your presentation, it seems like it's a lot of isolated, different actions, but it doesn't seem to me like there's a kind of general trend for that, maybe because of a lack of top-down incentive. Do you believe it's possible? Do you believe the future of Unistra or of campuses in France is only to make the sum of individual initiatives, or that there's some kind of top-down power that could try to generalize these kind of actions?
We have all this bottom-up action because we don't have the top-bottom actions, actually. So we try to check. We try to check. But this is difficult right now. So I think at one point we will have some top-bottom action. But right now, for example, Labo 1.5 is organized by a researcher. It was not at all a top-bottom decision. And we are able to do the carbon footprint because of the researchers that are aware of the climate change and say, okay, we have to do something. But we do not, we are not able to do that because we have the top-bottom action. So, but we would need an organization, at least between the lab, to be able to have some proposition to the top, because I think each laboratory is going to the university and saying, okay, it would be good to do that, to do that, to do that, to do that. But right now, this is individual. So I ask, now there is a vice president for sustainability. So I ask how things are organized, and if all the labs could propose some action, but I think we are not ready for that. So we stay with bottom-up actions.
Okay, we will soon have the poster session. I would just like to make one comment from University of Tours, from experiences that we have there. I think we have a general problem with insulation in all public buildings. I remember in my first bureau, the pigeons were coming to sit on a plastic roof to warm their backs in wintertime while I was freezing, and all my people in the laboratories left and right, everybody is carrying a 2,000 watt heater because the entire building is so badly isolated, and there's a gigantic waste of energy, and I think this could be beyond the universities to be integrated in these European efforts for this. Then we have in chemistry labs, we have the problem, we have to evacuate the air if we are working with hazardous substances, but if we are not using them, the airflow is practically the same. So we heat the air and then we just send it out to the environment to counteract the 1.5 degree. So I think there are certainly some elements that can be integrated into a broader context, and on the other hand, there are specific initiatives that are possible by the university just because they are in such a creative environment. Okay, how about the poster session now? So could you please proceed to the posters? And I want to thank all the speakers and all the people that contributed or listened very carefully to these nice presentations. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, we'll now start the poster session. So I would like to first invite you to listen to a video from Raisa Moussara, who could not join the poster session. It's very short, and then I invite the poster presenters to move in front of the posters to present them. Okay, see you.
This work purpose, by using an analytical deductive method, the description of social dynamics regarding the major mining disasters in Brazil, analyzed from the limitation of the regulatory tools available to public social actors involved in the social environmental governance of territories and natural resources in response to major disasters caused by mining in Brazil. Therefore, the author used the data platform National Observatory for Environmental, Economic and Social Affairs of high complexity and great impact and repercussion, created by the National Council of Justice, CNJ, and the National Council of the Public Ministry, CNMP, to face concrete situations of high complexity, major impact, and high socioeconomic and environmental repercussions, in addition to other documentary and bibliographic sources. Therefore, special attention is devoted to mining activity cases in Mariana and Brumadinho.
Hello everyone, my name is Raissa Muzah and I will try to explain a little bit more the content of the abstract. So this work analyzed the limitations in applying the existing regulation in Brazil to respond to the disasters in mining. After major disasters such as Mariana and Brumadinho, weaknesses in governance were demonstrated, especially in waste management and environmental and social diversity as a externality, but which are in general part of human rights violations, environmental crimes, crimes against individuals, against the community, and against public and private property. Insufficient training of public and private employees is dealing with environmental contingents in mining. Insufficiency in the authority of the mining in respective damages, exposure to fraud and corruption in public bodies. Transparency is insufficient and there is no model directly responsible to society. Besides that, the authors suggest international alternatives used for management and forecasting responsibilities to emergencies, aiming to contribute to advance in attending to situations understood as socio-environmental disasters in Brazil. Faced with the need to move people, special attention must be paid to the population resettlement program. Good practice is to carry out prior to transfer of populations during the move and for a few years after the transfer to the new locations. Careful work including following guidelines for the affected populations, like being informed of their rights and resettlement options, be consulted, be able to choose between technically and economically viable resettlement options, receive immediate and effective compensation measured at the total cost of replacement of lost improvements. A resettlement plan should include assistance during resettlement, assistance during a transition period sufficient to restore the standard of living of affected population, assistance such as land preparation, credit, training, or job opportunities, owning both the affected population and the host to have standards of living, access to land's natural resources, and service at least equivalent to levels prior to the resettlement, recover from all losses caused by the transition process to the new situation, suffer as limitation disruption as possible to their social network, employment and production opportunities, and access to natural resources and public facilities, access to economic and social development opportunities. The major disasters reported here did not have among their risk management tools the projection of response to emergencies, nor training, communication, and community engagement, leaving only the call of compensatory measures. Until now, irrelevant in the view of the scope of the social and environmental damages portrayed. Nor are there any records of adequate social, cultural, environmental, economic displacements. There is therefore a disparity proportional to disaster that has been the conduct of the addressed process, in addition to the slowness, insufficiency of measures and convictions, the disregard for the populations, territories, and their resources. There are flaws in the public action tools used to mitigate the social and environmental damage suffered, and failures also in the movements to avoid that similar cases are repeated. Thank you very much.
Okay, this material will be put on the website, and to look at it more in detail as it deserves. Here it was not optimal. And therefore I invite you now to look at the posters and invite the poster presenters to be in front of their poster. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Il y a ce jeu où il faut mettre un pied ici, un pied là, et après une main là, et l'autre. Tu sais ce que je veux dire? Avec les disponibilités des enseignants et la compagnie.